So hi everyone. Really happy to have all of you here to join us for the talk on RA Forest, Natural Urban Forest in Mumbai. And today we are going to take you through this exciting conversation around RA Forest, and it's going to be over 40 minutes. Before I take you down with all the all the ways and regulations and procedures, let me quickly first introduce you to Cassandra. So today we have with us Cassandra Nazareth here. She is fiercely independent supporter of all women. She is the founder of Tribal Tarka, which is basically a social enterprise for Warli women from women of RA Forest. She is a lawyer, environmental crusader, mentor for non-profits and startups. She also has her own creative business. It's called undercoverkidsgifts.com. And she has been one of the main pivotal people who've been leading this, this whole conversation, this whole civil society, people's movement for RA, now I think for 7 years or something. So before we get launched into our conversation with Cassandra, I just want to tell you all our participants, firstly, thank you so much for being here. And so what we will do is for first 30 minutes or 25 minutes, I'm going to ask Cassandra a couple of questions and she will take us through our journey. And after that, if you can send us your questions on the chat, and then you, for the next 10-15 minutes, you can ask questions directly to her. Yeah. We have kept you muted for now. You can raise your hands and then, put in your questions here and then we'll move forward. Right? So, hi, Cassandra. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Piali, and thank you to everyone who's joined well in time.
Yeah, so I want to quickly first tell how I met Cassandra. So Cassandra and I happened to meet over a training program. It's by Climate Reality Project. And we were both trained by ex-Vice President Al Gore on this climate change training program, which was a phenomenal experience for us globally. I think around 27,000 participants are there now, part of it, as we were trained to be climate reality leaders. And Cassandra and I were part of the same program. And when I got to know what she's been doing, it's been like fascinating and such great work that I wanted to let people understand and know that this is a story which should reach more and more people. So really happy to have Cassandra here and to take this conversation forward. So first quickly, I want to ask Cassandra, if we launch into RA, like if you kind of think about yourself since your childhood, where you see this activism in you, where the sense of justice, enabling people, when do you see this tree coming into you the first time?
I think this thing was always there in me, probably because my dad was like that. He was a very vocal person, not that he was an activist or whatever, but he used to like talk about stuff and get very irritated if something didn't go right. So I think I got that from him. And it's been there from, I think, school days.
Fascinating. So I got to know that you did your law degree at the age of 53. So you're also a lawyer, besides being running an enterprise, being in garment business and exports and fashion. And then social activism was majorly part of your life. But then you have been, you at a certain time in life where people don't think of it. How did you think of doing law and why?
Actually, I started doing law to help me with the work that I was doing with women, both in my local area where I live as well as in RA. I'm this person, I like to know stuff if I'm dealing with certain things. That's why I also wound up doing this climate reality training, because I figured out kids half my age were talking of carbon footprints. They were talking of carbon credits, and it was just going over my head. So that's how I wound up doing this climate reality as well. And that's where I met you.
Right. And how did RA happen to you?
RA happened because uh, I had put my so-called activism on the back burner because of my children and my family. And I had consciously decided that I'm not going to go into any activism till my family is grown. My daughter was still in the 8th standard, but unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, I wound up at one of these citizen meetings that were called, I think this was in the year 2016, January 2016. I read in the papers that this thing about RA and, a forest and everything. And I used to pass through RA and I never knew what this hullabaloo was about. So out of curiosity, I said, let me go and figure out what this is. They are talking about something that's happening in my city and I don't know about it. So I need to go. So I wound up there at one of these meetings and we were just 25 of us. So I said, we are talking of saving a forest. Where are the local people who live in the forest? How can we save something if the people who are living in that particular area are not part of what we are doing? So that was my first tryst with this entire Save RA movement. And I never looked back. It's been a fantastic journey. I've learned so much and hope to share during the course of this talk with people who are running movements themselves or hope to inspire other people to do what our Save RA movement did. An ordinary citizens movement.
Right, right. So I remember while I was talking to you, told me that I went to save the trees, but I didn't just save the trees, I saved the people of RA. So I'm going to just share my screen with the audience now and let them into a glimpse of RA. So, yeah.
To take from where I left off regarding when I went into RA Forest, as I said, when I went for that RA meeting, there were no local people. And there was somebody at the meeting, there was a gentleman who told me, he said, no, come, I'll take you to one of these villages. So I went to one of these villages and I found out that the people themselves were, going through such trying times that I felt that they needed saving as much as the trees that we were trying to save. So I said, come on, I set out to do something for them as well. And that's how this entire thing of this tribal tadka, as well as the tribal lunch and whatever, the village walks, everything that I've been doing in RA ever since 2016 has basically stemmed from there. Because I decided that if we have to save RA forest, we have to get the average Mumbaikar or the citizens of Mumbai to come into RA and see what RA is all about.
Right.
That way.
So, when people think of, let's say, Bombay, what happens? So I just want everyone to get a glimpse of that. Just give me a second. So when you think of Mumbai, this is what you get to hear or see if you've been here. It's full of high rises. You can see the sea, you get a glimpse of it. And yeah, there's some of the trees are also there for sure. And there's the Queen's necklace. It just looks stunning at night, as you can see. And it's like the financial capital, really jazzed up. This is the old part of our, our heritage Bombay, which is like everybody kind of associates with so much of history to fall back and think back upon. And with the old, there is the modern, which is juxtaposed. This is the Worli ceiling, which is like a great marvel and has done wonders for the city. And it's fantastic. It's like a technical engineering marvel. And with that, with the high rises, we also have our, slum residential all over, which are like all over the city. The high rise and the slums coexist together. So if you're flying over at the airport when you're about to land or something, you can see the Dharavi is one of the, Asia's largest slum, which you can see. Then when you see these pictures, you do not see any kind of wildlife fauna. You can't think of any kind of forest or any such thing in Bombay. This is pretty rare, and this is more of a reality what you see. What is RA and how does it like really look, or how it is? I just want to show you some pictures. So in the bang in middle of Bombay, we have this forest. And these are pictures taken in RA
Two
actually
days
last
ago.
week, 2 days, yeah, 2 days ago, yeah. So, yeah. So look at this. So what these are the trees. So why don't you tell us, Cassandra, a little bit about the fauna, flora, wildlife about RA?
As I was explaining to everybody, these are things that I learned in my journey of over the past 5 years of actively going into RA, working with the tribal community, walking around places of RA. What you see on your screen is what Piali and myself clicked from just driving around RA. We didn't really go into the, into the places where the Warlis live or the indigenous people live. But you can see the extent of the greenery around you. RA has got more than 5 lakh trees. So a lot of people, when this metro car shed hoo-ha was happening, thought that RA is just 2,700 trees. And it is only the people who have actually come into RA for whatever, either the people who go jogging in RA, who go cycling, who have attended some of my village walks, who have come for tree appreciation walks conducted by Rini, or who have come for meetings in RA, or who have come for one of my tribal lunches. These are the people who have actually gone into RA and really seen RA. RA, as I said, has more than 5 lakh trees. It's got so many species of wildlife. Okay, it's got 3 lakes. It's got 2 rivers. I didn't know that. And I've been living in Mumbai all my life. Very few people know that there are 2 rivers which originate from RA. So RA is basically the entire water replenisher for Mumbai city. The lakes, the Vihar Lake, then you have the Mithi River, you have the Oshiwara River. So you have 76 species of birds, you have 16 mammals, you have 9 leopards. Where do you find this in the middle of a metropolis? And when I figured out that this is what the government is planning to decimate, I said, no, this is not what we have to do. I teamed up with a whole lot of people, a whole lot of ordinary citizens who came together under the banner called Save RA. And well, to jump to 7 years later, we have managed to achieve what we wanted to. It was not easy. It was very, very difficult. So hopefully we'll touch on those parts as Piali takes me through this journey. I think she's got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So if you can see, it's a teeming hotbed of biodiversity. It's not something that has been created overnight. These are ancient trees. The Adivasis, the indigenous people who live there. There are 27 villages or padas that we know of the indigenous people who live there. They worship the trees, they worship the leopard. So they are not scared if they have leopards coming up to their doorstep every night. I work with women who can't keep livestock. They can't rear chickens. Why? Because they have a leopard that roams around at night who would eat up all this. So this is right in the middle of your city. So how can you think of chopping down or getting rid of something and planting a Miyawaki forest in place of this?
So, Cassandra, what happened? Like when there was this whole news, which was it was a nationwide news, and we all got to know that they're chopping down trees. What really happened around that episode, especially that one night when they cut trees? If you can tell us a bit more about that.
Before we go to that, I would like to explain to whoever's here whoever's listening, basically, that this whole movement to save RA, yes, it was to save a forest, but it's only when you go into the importance of geographically where RA is in Mumbai, you will realize how valuable that particular land is, because the urban sprawl has basically encircled RA today. So the land where RA is very, very valuable to the real estate lobby. And we slowly got to know over a period of time. I think Stalin is, I don't know whether he's on this webinar or whatever. He was one of the at the forefront of fighting for saving this entire thing that we have. There's an organization called Vanashakti. They were the pioneers who went to court to say that this thing. At a time when we didn't even realize it was a land grab. It is only slowly that this realization dawned on Mumbaikars. Initially, when we started talking about it being a land grab issue and not only about cutting trees, people thought we were crazy. Okay, but so many years later, we stand vindicted. Because if you look at where RA is, the car shed which they were planning to build there. And let me explain to people that this car shed was nothing but like a stabling yard for bogies for the trains, where they would be kept literally overnight for maintenance as well as for washing. They would be extracting groundwater from there. It's a red zone polluting industry. How can you have something like that in a forest? And later, we got to know that there were a lot of other projects also planned in RA. So it was not only the car shed, it was so many other projects that were planned there. That's all in the public domain. If you can read up on RA, you just Google the word RA forest and things will happen. Then what happened is, I think it was 4th of October in 2019. I remember I was in my CA's office and I was wearing short pants because I just gone in my shorts there. And I get 2-3 calls from people very agitated. A lot of the youngsters who had been part of this movement. Come soon, we are cutting trees. And this was at around 7:15 in the night. So I just ran out from my CA's office. I called my home and I said, no, I'm going to RE. Let me see what's happening. I reached there at around 8 o'clock because I live quite far from RE. I don't live around the corner from RE. And there was a big crowd pushing the barricades and trying to get in. And the cops were there. And when I reached, there were about 150 people. I'm trying to give you a sense of what happened that particular night when they actually cut some trees. And we were told that they've cut 2,700 trees. And some of us managed to go in. And what you can see on your screen are some of the trees that were cut in the night. People got emotional. The Adivasis who were there were lamenting. They were crying because these were trees which were really large and old. There were trees, I was there that night, and some of them were more than 35 inches in diameter. Those kind of trees don't grow overnight. And we saw these were the trees that were cut. So we were all in shock. Then finally the cops pushed us out of that place. They closed down the place. We were sitting on the road till about 3:30 in the morning. The cops picked up some of them, 29 youngsters and various people. We were not doing anything. There was no pelting of stones or anything. People came from various parts of the city. Till 3 o'clock in the morning, there were people trying to come and sit down in solidarity for these trees that were cut. Okay, because everyone was in shock that, first of all, who cuts trees in the middle of the night? And why would you want to cut trees in the middle of the night? So anyway, at that time, we thought that full 2,700 trees on that entire plot were cut. And a lot of Mumbai felt, rightly so, because they have not been into RA, thought that, okay, now the forest has been cut. What are you all fighting about? And I think that is the narrative that the government at that time wanted to create. And it was only in the morning or the next day, not even the next day, after 2-3 days, because the following day, they cut the trees on the 4th of October. And in the morning, none of us were allowed to go into RA. The entire RA was barricaded from different sides. And nobody was allowed to go in. But still, some of the locals who were there, some people who cycled, they managed to send us visuals from there. And we didn't know what was happening. I remember the next morning, I was just standing on the highway there and talking to people in the morning, and we got picked up and taken to various police stations. I remember people who were cycling in RA from 6 o'clock in the morning. They were picked up. taken to one particular place, one particular police station. And when they were released and they were coming out of RA, the cops who were at the entrance of RA picked them up again and took them to another police station. So it was complete and utter chaos. Nobody knew what was happening. That was a time when even if you uttered the word RA, you had cops chasing you. Okay. There's a very interesting thing. I remember that was the time when the FFF people joined in, and FFF is mainly Fridays for Future, very young people. They told us that since we can't protest in RA, come on, we will do something at Bandra, which is another location. So all these youngsters took their posters and everything and went there. And the cops told them, you can't show this poster, you can't show that poster. So they asked why. They said, because it's got the word RA. So, anyone uttering the word on RA, we were shadowed. Even on Twitter, we were trolled. Facebook pages were shadowed. The RA conservation page, this is another group that was and still is at the forefront of this fight for RA. And they've always been at the forefront. They were the original people who started this fight for RA, a group of very concerned citizens. So even the RA conservation page was shadowed. There was a time when their page was totally blocked. They were not allowed to share things. And this was at the peak point of the movement. Okay. But I think the citizens realized that this group of people, there has to be some substance into what this group of people is talking about. And believe me, that was the time when all the people, all the hard work that we had done of taking people to see the forest, either by way of the walks that we conducted, or these tribal lunches, or just escorting people around RA and saying, come and see for yourself. These are the very same people who started bombarding the government. These are the people, youngsters, mothers, old people, okay, across communities, across economics. Everybody came out and stood up for RA. And this was also the time when we decided that we've got to take this RA issue beyond Mumbai, because now it is beyond us.
Button, sorry.
It's
but
okay,
I just want to ask you, have you seen something like this, which is like completely people-led, citizen-led? You've been born and brought up in Bombay, you've always been here. Has something like this ever happened in Bombay before? Have you seen it?
No. And this is what took all of us by surprise. But I'm so glad, because it, as I was telling you, all the years of hard work that we put in to take people to RA came in useful now, because these were the people who came out, were writing emails, were on Twitter, were on the road with placards. We had children making placards and coming and standing there and saying, in pouring rain, there are visuals. As I said, everything is out in the public domain. You can Google it. Just Google #SaveRA or #SaveRAForest. You will find a wealth of information. Right. And the government wanted the people to believe that 2,700 trees were cut. Now the forest is gone. But no, we had people from our group who actually got images. And then after 3 days of the trees being cut, we came to know that no, this was a ploy on the part of the government to push the narrative that now the forest is gone, so what are you all protesting about? And a lot of people believe that. Till today, a lot of people don't know the kind of images that you put on your screen about RA. And I saw that you put some of those images of the transplanted trees. Yeah. These were the trees which the government told us that no, we will transplant trees. But you can see the kind of things. A lot of time has been spent by various people of the Save RA movement to check up on what the government is doing, to put out in the public domain. A lot of legwork has gone. People have actually visited these sites, clicked pictures, mapped the trees. Zoru is another person who diligently follows each and every tender that comes in whichever newspaper. And he figures out which tree is going to be cut where and everything. So that was a time when citizens came together and started pooling in resources. But it was very, a totally different thing for Mumbai. Mumbai had never done anything like that. I had never seen anything like that before.
And it was a peaceful activism, protest. How did you see common people coming in? What was the thing that they were doing which made sure there was impact? However, it was not creating any kind of chaos. What was it? How was it different?
See, I think a group put out this thing saying Sundays for RA. Okay, so we just put out a call to action saying, if you want to save RA forest, come stand. Okay, and we stood peacefully. We were pushing against the police who kept on telling us, no, you can't stand here, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, you know. And you can see we had picket lines which went on for kilometers. And who were the people on these picket lines? Ordinary citizens who came from right around the city. We had people coming from Pune to support us, which is a satellite city of, not a satellite city, I mean, it's quite far. So
right. So, in your journey, of working with RA, a lot of work you put into the indigenous people, the Adivasi tribe which lives in RA. There are these walks which you do, and there is something around which you did about getting electricity. And there's this lunch and gender diversity, livelihood. You also ran petitions. So, this is now news that there are 600 acres of RA will be declared as reserved forest. This news has just come in. But behind this, the hard work and all the legwork and the groundwork which has gone in, can you tell us, walk us through with your work with the community?
See, this is a very simple community, okay? And they are struggling to still retain their roots, which are typically indigenous roots, as well as they are living within a city of Mumbai. I remember when the court cases were going on in town, that is Colaba side. Some of my Wadli women had never gone beyond the local station, which is Goregaon, which they had, where they live. And I remember I told them, I said, come on, I'll take you to the court. So I took 2 or 3 of them with me to court. They came, and I said, I want you all to see and take back to your community and tell them how a city is fighting for them to retain their lands. And that is what they took back. My work with the community is totally different. I do a mixture of welfare and advocacy with the women. Yeah. And today it is them who have the confidence to talk. The Wadli community came together. This is a meeting which I got the people from Mantralia to come to RA and have a meeting with all 27 village people. This was the time when I was fighting for electricity. This was around the Save RA movement.
So tell us about the petition and how electricity came into RA. That part, and also please tell about how people in RA, you have an Instagram handle called Kashi by RA, and why are you called Kashi by RA? I want you to tell about these 2 episodes, please.
Okay, I have this tongue twisting name called Cassandra Nazareth, and it's rather long. So when I used to go to the villages, the kids couldn't pronounce my name. So when I used to get out there, and I have a protein project going on as well. So I go with either bananas or a boiled egg or whatever, because that was building up health for the women as well as the kids. And the kids would come running around, and they would go running to tell their mothers that Kashibai has come, because they called me Cassie and they couldn't pronounce my name. So that's how the Kashibai thing stuck. So when I had to start this page, and I wanted to separate my advocacy page from my welfare page. So my welfare is done under Tribal Tadka, and my advocacy is done under Kashibai RA. So my cover is blown for the time. Okay. I had started this, I was very angry when I went into Naushad Sapada. I think that was in 2017. And I found that they don't have electricity. Can you see the road behind there where the bike is parked? And you can see where the Adivasi village is. That road has got street lights. Okay. And the Adivasi houses there did not have electricity. So that got me very, very angry. And I said, where is your sense of social justice? So when I got an opportunity I was trained as a campaign strategist. Okay. So I decided, wow, I've got the tools now. This is where I can use them. So I launched a petition on the 14th of August 2018 for Naushad Pada to get electricity. And I did not, in my wildest dreams, think that they would get electricity so soon. On the 3rd of June 2019, less than a year later, they were called and they were given the letter, the NOC, the no objection certificate, so they could get their electric connections properly. I never expected that. But what did my petition do? My petition gave the Adivasis the courage to say that if this lady who doesn't live here can talk about us, why can't we do something about it ourselves? So I took a step back and I let the community take over. Today they have organized themselves. They have taken on parts of the fight to save RA as well. Okay, we are talking about Forest Rights Act that is being spearheaded by this very group that also took over the thing from me for fighting for the electricity. So I'm very happy in a way that my advocacy remained with me, and it has given the community, it has given Prakash Bhoy and all the other people, Santosh, we have Dinesh, we have so many people. I can't even begin to take names because the amount of people who have been part of the citizen movements, okay, they wouldn't fit in a diary as well, because there are so many stories over the past 7 years. There were times when we went into depression, I'll be honest with you, where our, let's say, motivation was on the floor. There were times when I said, forget it. This is when we took out the thing to fight for electricity. This is one of the mochas that the community took out themselves.
That you took a bus full of women when you were fighting for electricity to the court, and that was your first time to get out of RA also.
Yeah, so I took a few of them. I didn't take them by bus, I took them by train because I wanted them to experience how we travel. So that was the first time that some of these women had even been to Churchgate station. They had never been outside Goregaon. Then they told me, they said, no, now our children want to go. So then we hired a BST bus and we took them right around the city. And they had never seen the Sea Link. You know, a lot of stuff that we take for granted is not available to people who have little or nothing. And today with this COVID, they have been very badly hit.
Yeah, so you have done work around getting smokeless chulas and bio-toilets, and how has COVID impacted RA, and what's the kind of work which you have done for the community around that?
See, when I started this Tribal Tadka project, I was aiming to do two things. One is to get the Mumbaikar into RA, so ultimately they would stand up and save RA. Yeah. Okay. And the other is, I knew that by this interaction, I could start a livelihood project for the women and of this community. And what did I do? I started the women cooking because that was the only skill that they had. So through that, they have earned a livelihood. Some of them were cooking at the Taj for 10 days at a festival called Tales of RA. And they got so much of respect from their community. Can you imagine, from a dusty village in RA? Okay, you're cooking in a 5-star restaurant where you are telling the chefs what to do, you know, and how to do and everything. And I remember the first day, one of my women showed me the bhakris that they were making at this Renaissance. They were cooking at the Renaissance Marriott for this 10-day festival called Tales of RA. And they showed me this bhakri and they're saying, look at this bhakri. So I said, okay, what's wrong with it? So they said, look at the edges. This is not the kind of bhakri we make. So we went to the chef. These are some of the chefs, and that's the CEO of the Renaissance Marriott Powai. And that is Blazia, who's my main person who helps keep me grounded. She does all my accounts and, you know, everything. She's my basic go-to person. They told the cook, they told the chef that, you know, the atta which you have is not correct. So the chef, and he couldn't understand, he couldn't speak Marathi. So I was the interpreter. Okay, Kashibai was the interpreter. So he told me, he said, fine, tell them to get the atta. So I had given them chakkis. There are 8 villages which have got these flour mills, because one of the first things I did when I went into the villages, I saw that these are communities where the women have to walk sometimes for as long as 2 kilometers just to go out of their village to the main road and then come back. So the first thing I did is I sent out a word saying, if you want to help, I need chakkis. Okay, and these chakkis cost 15,000 rupees. So today we've got about 8 villages that have got these flour mills, grinding flour, which the women in whose house the uh, grinding mill is, she runs it like a business. But I've saved the women and the community the trek of going through a forest without lights or whatever to, you know, a place where they have to grind the atta. So it is through this tribal Tadka project that I was able to get this, because people who came for the tribal lunch or came for the village walks, they would ask me, how can we help? And I would throw a big list of things to them based on what the community asked me for. So it is through them that today we've got 8 chakkis, we've got bio toilets. Toilets is a big issue in RE. Okay, big issue. We managed to get 17 toilets. They were very expensive. The last toilet I bought was 64,000 bucks. That was last year. And about 15 or 20 days ago, the same toilet manufacturer, he's in Pune, he messaged me, he said, madam, now my price has come down because I have made a mold. I made a fiberglass mold. So the price has dropped to less than 20K a toilet. So today I messaged Preeti. I said, Preeti, the price has come down. So 4 toilets, I'll be able to buy 4 toilets for 80K. And I've left it at that. So let me see if I can push and get some more toilets, because the government has built toilets for them, but they've built them at the base of the village. So when you don't have lights, you don't have street lights, you're living in a forest. Okay. How do you just think, if you have a tummy upset or you're pregnant and you need to go to the loo every time, okay, how are you going to walk? Or in the middle of the night, let's say, how do you walk, let's say 600 or 800 kilometers to go to the, not kilometers, sorry, 600 or 800 meters to go to the toilet, which is at the bottom of your village, which again doesn't have any electricity or light or even running water.
So BMC doesn't service the communities inside RA?
No. The BMC doesn't service the communities inside RA. They are supposed to be cleaning this place called Picnic Spot, which is a place which is open to the public, where Mumbaikars can go. Some of us who have grown up in Mumbai will remember having gone to Picnic Spot in RA or even the RA Dairy as part of our school picnics. Today, let me tell you that there is a beautiful butterfly garden also in RA. We didn't have that about 3 or 4 years ago. Thanks to Sandeep and the vision that his family had, there is a butterfly garden today. It's open to the public. You're most welcome. Google Butterfly Garden in RA, Sandeep Athalia. His name will prop up. You're most welcome to get in touch with him. Sponsor. I've got friends and different groups who are doing, who are making seeds. They do seed bombing in RA to rewild. There are groups who are doing tree planting. Okay, we are not looking at planting, let's say 6-inch high saplings, because those things don't survive. When we've done rewilding or reforesting with the Wadli women, we have given them minimum 7 to 8 feet high saplings. And today, these are the saplings from which we've given, let's say 4 years ago, from which some of my women are actually earning. Some of those govers which you saw earlier, which Piali put up on the thing, could have well come from one of those communities there.
So, you know, now that these women are in the forefront, they are now making money. There is employment, and this is all around the projects around Tribal Archive is basically a project around livelihood. How do you see how the tribal society work? It's mainly patriarchal, which you told me, but how do you see the men supporting them, or do they support them? And what do you think, how has it impacted gender diversity?
See, when I first went to meet these women, I remember it was on I remember dates, certain dates I remember because these are ingrained in my head. 26th of Jan 2016 was the first day I went into that Kambachapada. And very few people had ventured into these villages. Okay, this is also at Kambachapada. This is Sunita's mother-in-law's house. So, as I said, when I went there, the women would not even look at me face to face. They would look down and talk. I had to tell them, look at me and talk. And they kept on telling me, no, but how can we? You are so much bigger than me. So I said, bigger than you in terms of age? They said, no, no, you are staying in a flat and everything. So I said, and how does that make me bigger than you? I mean, we are basically the same. So today, I have given these women a confidence where they can go anywhere and talk. I think there is a picture also in the public domain of one of my women giving Sanjay Azad Singh when he came serving RA. She gave him a letter and she spoke and she told him, please make sure, sir, that you talk in parliament that our houses are not demolished and that our forest is not cut down. So, I mean, that's all I can do. My work is done. Then a very interesting thing happened when I started this tribal lunch. They used to cook on firewood. They would put few stones there and cook on firewood. And I told them, cook whatever you all want to. I didn't say cook this, cook that, cook this, cook that. I just sat with them and we worked on a menu. The first couple of times that we had this lunch, there were a lot of kids running around and I'm this very hyper person. So I was like paranoid that one of the kids would get burnt and like, okay, the whole blame would come on me. So I was like saying, keep your kids around, watch them, be careful. All this madness I was doing. By the third lunch, there were no kids there. So I said, today, how come I don't have to look? There are no kids. Where are your kids? So one of my women, she twiddled her thumb and forefinger like this, like how we count money. And she told me, no, no, today my husband is at home. So he told me, you go and you work. I will look after the kids. And she told me, this has never happened before. So I was quite surprised. I just chuckled to myself and I said, good, that means we are making a difference. One thing I instilled in these women who I work with, and I'm working in 12 of the 27 villages, I actively work with them. I told them, whatever you earn is yours. You decide what you want to do with the money. Does not belong to the family. It is yours. So today they have bank balances, they have PAN cards, they have got bank accounts. I think it's all documented in various places because they told me, take us to the bank. So I said, no, I will take you once. But after that, you have to take groups of 3 or 4 or whatever. I went with them just once. And all I did was tell the bank manager, make sure you don't harass them. So next time when they come with the next group, you can sort of see to them and not make them wait. So it's always been my women who have taken the thing. This entire project today, they own. There was a time when I couldn't organize anything, any of these activities without making at least a minimum of 3 trips to RA. To sit with them, work with the group and everything. Today, with one phone call, I can organize a tribal lunch. So that is how much confidence I have in the women that they won't let me down. And they do everything. The only thing I do for them is the ticketing because that is the only interface they cannot manage at the moment because of lack of cell phones, lack of internet connectivity and everything. So
Right. So my last question before we move on to the next section and bring in our audience to ask you questions is that tell your audience about what is the significance of this Warli community. We just said that it is a tribal community in RA, but they've been there forever. And why is it important to also conserve their heritage? So just tell us a little bit about that.
See, the world over, the indigenous people are the keepers of the forest. Okay. And I have seen the same thing. I've seen the same thing happening here. Okay. Yes, they do go into the forest and cut firewood. I'm not saying no, because that is the way, that is their way of life. Okay. But they will nurture a tree. If you walk into any Warli village, you will see how nicely they have protected the roots of the trees. They raise the mud around the tree or whatever and really protect these trees. Some of my women have got tamarind trees which are like, how many inches? I can't even put my arms around the tree. It's that big. And they nurture these trees. So the Warli community are the original keepers of the forest. They have a they have, what is it called? A sense of community. Like if there is a death or if there is a wedding in RA, all the 27 villages will wind up there because they all have relatives at different places. There are 225 other Adivasi Padas around Mumbai. Are you aware of that? Irrespective of the ones in RA, 225. Because originally the whole of Mumbai were Adivasi Padas.
Right.
Okay. There are Padas in Mud Island. As part of this COVID lockdown food project that I have been running, we've sent food even to these far-flung communities. And that's when I started getting calls from the other Adivasi communities. There are 11 Adivasi hamlets in Sanjay Gandhi National Park. None of them have electricity. Do you know that?
Since independence.
Yeah, in the middle of Mumbai. And I'm hoping, I'm in talks with somebody to see if we can do a solar grid for them so that they have some kind of electricity. And it's not like the government doesn't have electricity in Sanjay Gandhi National Park as well. They have. It's the same situation as what I saw in Naushad Sapada, which I fought for electricity. These 11 villages in Sanjay Gandhi National Park don't have electricity even today. And a stone's throw away, the government quarters have electricity.
Okay. So before I just go on to question, we have a couple of questions. I want to ask you a last question that RA is really like gold mine. Like you still see when you took me around, there's huge encroachment, which is still kind of creeping in. There's a huge problem with garbage and plastic, it's getting into the water zone and everything. So what is the fight over, or can people like take a breath of relief and say, okay, 600 acres of land has been conserved and reserved for as wildlife, so it's all great now. What are the concerns which you have now?
See, the fight for RA is not over. The MVA government, that is Uddhav Thackeray, on the 11th of November 2019, finally said, okay, the car shed is going out of RA. I remember reading this thing and I had goosebumps and I didn't know what to do. So my family looked at me and they said, what's wrong with you? And I got tears streaming down my face and I'm saying, the car shed is going out of RA. Okay, so that was one of the battles. The fact that the government has said that 600 acres will be declared as a reserved forest immediately is good news. But what is going to happen to the rest of RA? That is phase 2, which the government is talking about. And since they've given us 2 bits of good news, I'm of the opinion that maybe we can wait and watch. If they do something bad, we can always protest again, correct? That's our right. So right now, as I said, they've said 600 acres immediately are deemed forest, and they are in the process of mapping out which exactly are the paths. And the next thing is, what is this phase 2 that they're talking about? What exactly are they going to be allowing as activities in RA, disallowing activities in RA? That is something that everybody is waiting. But it is good news that the car shed is actually moving out from RA, because that was a toehold for the land grab to start it. Because then there was another thing which a lot of people didn't know, that the Metro 3 line was originally to be from Colaba to Seeps. Okay, most of y'all who know where Mumbai topography would understand this. So Seeps is where it's a big business district, where a lot of the export zones and everything are. Then suddenly we hear that there is an RA station. Now, so the Adivasis started questioning as to, why do we need an RA station? We are not going to be using the metro. We can't afford the metro. So then there is this RA station, and then you have the metro car shed. So a lot of us started questioning, like, why do we need this? Then we heard that after this, where the metro car shed land ends, there's going to be, that was 62 hectares, which they were going to take. There's another 90 hectares, which are going to go into slum rehabilitation. Okay. And where the 90 hectares ends, then there's going to be another 120 hectares of uh, conservation for a zoo. So then we heard that, okay, Metro Bhavan is going to take up another 3 hectares. Then there's an RTO coming. And if you see the placement of these projects, this again is in the public domain. Have a look at it. We figured out that basically what the government was trying to do is just truncate and, you know, shrink RA and make it smaller and smaller. So that is what we as a citizens group, this entire Save RA movement, has managed to fob off. And it's been a long battle. 7 years it's not been easy. It's taken a toll on quite a lot of us. We've had fights. The original people who had started the thing are no longer there in the movement. Some of them are still there. They soldier on. Some don't talk to one another. We've had our differences. We still have our differences. But I think what has really brought Mumbai together is when the people who have actually seen RA have really fought. And that is why, Piali, I made the effort to take you into RA that day, because you wanted to do research. How could you interview me if you have not seen what I've seen with my eyes? I'm sorry I couldn't take you to the villages because of COVID.
Right.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be a carrier of COVID and go into the villages. So we just drove around RA.
Yeah.
So that's
for me, it's very important to know when I get into something, to really experience it with my own life. So thank you so much for taking me. So now we have like 10 minutes. I want to just quickly run you through the questions which we have from our audience.
Okay.
So we have a question from Madhura Dasgupta. So she is saying that, what were some of the moments you think made citizens across and outside the citizen participated to show solidarity? What were you learning from that experience that helped you shift approach to organizing people? How did you organize people?
Okay. I don't know if Namita is here in this thing. She was one of the people I met in 2018, in August 2018. And in January 2019, she took a keen interest in what was happening in RA because we used to talk. And she told me, what are y'all guys doing? Why are y'all allowing the government to cut down this such a lovely thing? And she lives in Delhi. She called me up and she said, come on, I will help you. Tell me what needs to be done. So I said, see, Namita, I don't know how to take this outside Mumbai, because it needs to go outside Mumbai. It needs to go global. That is what will give all of us a great push. So she said, okay, come on. We started with this petition, which Nirali had started on the Save RA movement, because whenever you want to look at an issue, someone will want to read up on an issue. And there was so much of stuff out. Nobody had really collated anything. So there was this petition which Nirali we were passing around saying, okay, if you want to read up on RA, sign the petition. So that time it had some 2 lakh signatures or something. So we all, friends of mine, we translated it into 8 regional languages. We also translated it into Japanese. So it would go to JICA or JICA, however you pronounce it, who are funding the Metro 3 car shed. But let me explain one thing to you. The government was very smart. Okay. The Metro 3 line was funded by JICA, okay, or JICA, but the car shed was not. The car shed, the original plan was the government needed to develop real estate in RA to fund the Metro 3 car shed. That is the Metro 3 line. That is the narrative that we were given to understand. And there was so much of trolling going on. I remember there was one day when we woke up and 17 newspapers had a smear campaign against the entire Save RA movement. 17 newspapers. We did a calculation, I remember, as to how much those newspaper ads, full page newspapers, I still have some of them kept as a record, full page ads, telling the public that no, these people are talking rubbish, they are anti-development, they don't want the metro, they don't want this.
Right.
And that campaign, I think, was like something like 17 lakhs or something, or maybe more. I don't have the correct figure. I have it somewhere. I can dig it out later if someone wants to know. But we did a calculation as to how much these ads would cost. So there's so much of mud that was thrown at us. We still get trolled on Twitter, you know. So that kind of thing. I'm sorry, did I answer the question or I went off on a tangent?
Absolutely. The next question is from Vimala Ramakrishnan. She's asking, have you planned to write up the stories of the women and yourself? So many others which can be digitized, spread across other cities. If you already have done, so it would be great to share it. So all these stories about the women and your work is written and digitized?
I'm a person who hated to talk about what I do. I'll be honest with you. But I started this Tribal Tadka page. Prior to Tribal Tadka, I was associated with an NGO that was doing a little work in RA called WWH, to be fair to them. Okay. I was the architect for all their projects. Okay. Then my son decided no, because he found that there was a little slight difference of opinion or whatever. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I started my own NGO, or just registered an NGO last year in January to give a little more structure to my work. So I continued with this Tribal Tadka Women of RA page. Okay, I learned Instagram. I think somebody was asking, how do we take the thing forward? I went to law school for what? To help with my advocacy, right? Okay. I learned Instagram from my children. Because
you're really motivating, I must say.
Because I said, this was the time when Namita said, no, we are translating the petition. And I realized that we have to be more active on Twitter. So we organized, that was the first time we organized an all India Twitterthon for RA. That was the first time that we took the RA story, you know, in a big way around India and captivated the, let's say, audiences. People gave me access to their Facebook page and said, post what you want. This was up north. Okay, 5 lakh followers, 3 lakh followers. I still have friends who tell me, if you want to post anything on RA, just send it to us, we'll post it. So that's how. Then they would share pictures with us of Punjab News has written about RA. This is news. Then Sanjeev Walson has made films on the Adivasis and on the RA movement.
So this documentation is something which you have?
Yes, it's all in bits and pieces, but I do have. Somebody is in the process of making a film, a documentary film. I think Stalin referred them to me 2 days ago, and I just pulled out videos and pictures and some from my head, and you know, it's in the process.
Quickly, Cassandra, sorry, we have a few more questions. So I'm just going to, so that, you know, I also want to spend some time telling how can people get involved after this. So one is what's the status of the car shed now?
The car shed, the contractor is vacating. They're taking off material from there, and they're closing whatever pits which could be a hazard where someone can fall in or whatever, you know. So they are in the process of securing the site.
Okay, that was from NK. The next question is from Pratima, and she's asking, are these paras exclusively inhabited by Adivasis, or do you have other groups too?
See, from the 27 paras, okay, about 12 or 13 paras are purely Adivasi paras, and those are the paras that I mainly work in. Okay, some of the paras have got, let's say, the Adivasis pushed to one corner, and an urban slum or like a sprawl has come up there because of the land mafia. That is the reality in RA, because of the land. You should go around this place called Royal Palms.
Yes.
Next door to it, you will find Adivasi villages who were originally, way back, long before this car shed issue came up. Apparently, the government gave land to the Nenses. Yeah, but that's a different matter altogether. Yeah. That's a different point in history. There is no point combining the two. That was done long before any of us were even on the scene. So
okay,
we can't be held accountable.
Right. So the next question is, what are you doing for the education of the tribal children? Is there any work which you're taking on?
I have not gone into the education sphere, for the simple reason is that we are a group of what, 3, sometimes 2 of us, sometimes 4 of us, sometimes 5 of us. There are other NGOs and other groups who are working in the education sphere. And yes, if I can help them, we do. And there are very active Balwadis in each of these villages. They have a teacher that comes in, they get the midday meal. There was one thing I wish that had happened. Instead of giving our kids cell phones, how I wish that people had given each of these Balwadis a smart connection, because that would have benefited the whole village rather than just 30 kids. That was just one request that I had.
Okay, so quickly, somebody is asking, are you promoting it as a tourist spot? Is there some work? This is Shrikant again, as a tourist spot. And then Mr. Father Jerry CSSR is saying that there's a lot of work done by the church in RA. Also, yeah, so yeah, the last question is this, that are you promoting it as a tourist spot RA with the government?
I think the government has their own plans. Let's see what happens in future. I'm not actively promoting RA as a tourist spot. I have got no plans. Another thing is to address the issue. Yes, I may have a Catholic name. I may have a Roman Catholic background, but I have never taken my religion to the village folk, because I believe that if you are in the public domain, religion is a very personal thing. Okay, whether you practice your religion, don't practice your religion, that's your prerogative. And I feel as a person, if I'm going into a different milieu, I have no right to take my religion to these kind of communities. That's something I've never done.
Right. So lastly, quick thank you so much, Cassandra, for sharing such great stuff with us. Lastly, can you just tell me quickly, like 10 things which you think is call to action, how people can get involved, they can do more for RA. What are the 10 things which you would say, tell people to do as a word of advice?
Okay, see, we come from different backgrounds, we have different interests. If tree planting is your interest, join a tree planting group. If cycling in RA is your interest, join a cycling group. If you don't know where to join these, email me, I'll put you in touch with these people. There are people who walk in RA. There are people who conduct tree walks in RA. I conduct the village walk. I conduct various welfare activities. You can chip in with that. You can actively get involved in that. If your forte is teaching children, yes, my only request to you is be consistent. Like I've had people who said, no, we'll train the women. Okay, but after the training, are you going to be buying their stuff? That is important, because you can train somebody, but what happens to the stuff which they've made? Are you going to be buying it? So that's where Tribal Tatka, we make thechas. You can buy that from us, or you can buy laddus. In fact, Diwali is around the corner. My page has already put up a thing asking for hosts. And what are these hosts? The thing is, these are women who are stuck in one place. The logistics of delivery kills any kind of entrepreneurial profit that you're going to be making. So what we do is we ask for hosts around the city who say, okay, you can use one room in my house, or you can use my building basement as a spot where people around can come and pick up the stuff that they've pre-booked. So what we do is we place these orders with the women. I tell them, okay, today we are in Andheri from 2 to 4 or from 2 to 3 o'clock, you know. So that is what a host does for us. So step forward if you'd like to be a host. Tree planting, what else? Cleanup drives. There are groups who are doing cleanup drives. What else? My women will cook food. Okay, if you book them for an event, they will cook food. How they get there, how they reach back home, that's my headache. I look after them. Okay. You can order food with them. You can order bhakris. There's so much of stuff that you can do. Get in touch and we'll find a way for you to get involved. I need help even in documenting what I'm doing, because there's so much you can do.
Yeah, also for your Tribal Tatka, your foundation, young people can volunteer for you to for the digitization of it and
Yeah.
documenting and putting things together. That is one big area which they can volunteer and
Ryan, who has helped us with the Zoom call today, somebody I've never met. I, people reach out and I say, okay, this is what I need. Come on, let's put our heads together and get this thing moving. There are so many people I've never met. Let me tell you about the COVID lockdown food project. That's
yes.
the last thing, because I want to explain to you how my community distributed food without me having to step into RA. I started stepping into RA only the past 2 weeks. Otherwise, from the middle of March till now, I had never gone into RA. But yet, we've done 31 lakhs worth of sponsored food grains my women have distributed in their respective villages. We made WhatsApp groups with these women. Some of them didn't have a phone. They would share the phone with somebody. Okay. And I would say, okay, I'm sending this stuff. They would distribute, zero contact, all that. The kind of deliveries that they've done, how they've distributed, everything is documented on my Instagram page as well as this Facebook page.
You told me that how on videos you would send instructions how to do zero contact.
Yes.
And
yes.
then they drew circles and they were standing inside the circle.
We had to
tell about
explain to
that
them.
wonderful story.
My Adivasi women understood immediately what I meant by zero contact delivery. Okay. Some of the people who were not original Adivasis or whatever couldn't understand this. And I remember Mahesh and myself having a good laugh because I got these pictures with 2 circles drawn on the floor and one person handing over food to the other person standing in the circles. And I went ballistic. I said, what is this? This is not zero contact. So then Mahesh had to call that fellow and say, listen, this is not how you have to distribute the thing. But as I said, 31 lakh worth of sponsored food grains we've distributed. 7.5 lakh of crowdfunding by way of cash, which came to us, and we bought food grain and we distributed. We've impacted 12,585 families. In addition to that, we've distributed 38,475 cooked meals, which we got from Khana Chahiye. So we are open to partnering, we are open to collaboration. Zomato Feeding India, I must say, gave me close to 15 lakhs worth of food grains. And I didn't even know. Suddenly I get a call saying, I'm sending 2,000 kits. They're already in a truck on the way to you. So I said, God, what do I do? And none of us had stepped out of our houses. So I quickly called up Blazia, Mahesh, Anirudh was helping, and another lady called Rajni. Okay. Rajni was uploading and writing the emails. Anirudh was uploading everything onto Facebook and Instagram. Blazia was helping me keep track of which went where. And I'm between. Mahesh was helping me to translate if I needed anything done on the WhatsApp groups in Marathi. Otherwise, in my funny Marathi, I was typing stuff. So we managed, and I'm so proud of the communities, the way they distributed food.
Great. Firstly, I want to say thank you to audience. They're just with us till now. So thank you so much. 5 more minutes. So quickly tell us about the petition here, Cassandra.
See, the first step, if you want to read up about, well, now I think we have gone beyond the petition stage, so to say, because there's so much of matter on RA in the public domain. So a simple Google will tell you. But the initial thing, well, if you want to share it with somebody new who doesn't have time to Google and read up, share this petition. It's, as I said, it's in 8 different regional languages. So they can read up and sign or whatever and anything. The signing is, or the reading of the petition is only to give you an initial introduction to what the RA story is about. Like the petition is only a tool to get your voice across.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So on that note, I think we should wrap up our today's session. So I want to again thank you, Cassandra. It was I've heard these stories now a few times and I want to hear them more and more. And I feel extremely inspired by you, more so because you've really done work at ground level. And I'm going there with you, seeing the impact which you have created. So kudos to you. You're going younger day by day. You're amazing. You're younger than most 20-year-olds for sure. I want to. I'm sure that this is not just one conversation. This is going to go forward. I want to tell our audience that if you have any kind of, if not now, later, you want to contribute, you want to do more, please write to Cassandra at tribaltarka@gmail.com. We both are also climate reality leaders. Even I work in social impact sustainability arena. And if you want to amplify your stories, so please write to me. You can reach out to me at 7.piali@gmail.com. And anything you want to do with RA or more, please reach out to Cassandra. You can tell me also. I will connect you to her. And for today's session, there are a couple of people I would like to thank who really helped us. One is Blazia, Anirudh, Ryan, and Satish for taking care of all the background technical stuff. And thank you all to our whole full audience being so patient with us and being with us for so long. Thank you so much. I hope you had a nice time and it was informative. And if you have any more questions, please email and reach out to us. And again, thank you, Cassandra, for everything.
Thank you, Piali. And thank you to the audience. You've been very patient with us and looking forward to collaborations because action is what we are all about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll end the meeting.